grinds my gears.
What the hell is wrong with you?
What the hell is wrong with you?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Ryno's Rants. And boy, oh boy, do we have stuff to rant about tonight. Oh, I don't know. I'm guessing most of you guys did the same thing I did last night and stay up late on a Monday to watch an absolute debacle of a game between the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. Prime time at US Bank Stadium. Hey, Doc, good evening. Those of you who sat up to watch that witnessed the worst football game, the recent memory of the Vikings franchise. There was a stat that came out today that I saw that the Chicago Bears became the only team in the Super Bowl era to win a game without scoring a touchdown, having over 75 yards worth of penalties, and multiple turnovers. The defense did its job last night. I mean, you can't really complain too much about what the defense did. Yeah, there was a couple of things they could have done on that last drive. I don't know why they backed off on the pressure, because that had been working most of the night, and then they kind of sat back in that final drive. But honestly, we should have never gotten to that final drive, because when the Vikings got the ball there with 3 minutes to go inside Bears territory and managed to just completely piss the whole thing down their leg. I think they gained 2 yards, 3 yards or something like that. Had to punt the ball back, gave Chicago plenty of time to march on down the field and get a score to make the final Chicago 12, Minnesota 10. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I normally have a nice little note sheet and kind of a set list going on for tonight. Had a long day today. I didn't get much typed up, but so we're going to wing it here tonight. You guys come on in with your comments, your rants, your venting, whatever you want to talk about that game last night. Let's get it out here in the open. We'll call this a therapy session if we need to, but the offense last night, 10 points against the Bears. Yeah. How do you score 12? How do you only give up 12 points and lose, Doc? Answer me that question. I mean, watching, and it wasn't just last night. We started seeing this in the Denver game last week. Am I mad, G-Mac? I am frustrated as absolute hell, as I'm sure you're aware from some of the discussions we were having earlier today in our Gellerhorn group on Facebook. Hey, Nick, good evening. But looking at, we saw Josh Dobbs come in the Atlanta game, lit the world on fire, played great, off schedule, doing that backyard sandlot type gaming, using his legs, bootlegging, running around, making plays with his legs, that kind of stuff. And starting in that Denver game and going into last night, you could tell that Kevin O'Connell abandoned adjust his offense to take advantage of the skill set that Josh Dobbs has, and instead went more to, we're going to make Josh Dobbs fit our offensive scheme. Frustrating becomes the definition of Vikings fan, G-Mac. Absolutely. Good evening, Stephen. Good evening, Todd. Good evening, Robert. Uses talents, but want a pocket passer. Yeah. And that's the thing. We've seen kind of the tale of two extremes, I guess, the last couple of weeks. We have seen what a mobile quarterback can add to this offense if used properly. But then also we have seen what an inaccurate quarterback can take away from this offense if he's forced to do things that he's not good at. Josh Dobbs is no Kirk Cousins when it comes to accuracy. He's no Jaron Hall when it comes to accuracy. We saw that on a lot of plays last night. There was that fourth down play to TJ Hawkinson where Dobbs threw it behind Hawk. And, if he got it out front, it would have been a first down. Granted, Hawkinson should have, ran his route another yard deeper and it wouldn't have been a problem. Ray, good evening. Welcome to the show. Doc, Dobbs is good in his first two appearances because he was just playing. Now he's overcoached. That was exactly the point I was trying to get to on here, Doc. They're trying to turn Josh Dobbs into something that he's not. Josh Dobbs is not a drop back pocket passer, high accuracy guy that's going to sit back there and just pick teams apart like Cousins was capable of doing. Good evening, Chuck. He's a guy that plays off script. He's, more into the hero ball type stuff. He's going to get out bootlegs, RPOs, things like that. And we ran that stuff against Arizona. And for the most part, we ran quite a bit of it against New Orleans. But then all of a sudden, we just decided to abandon it last week against Denver and this week against the Bears. And it cost us. We lost both games because of it. Good evening, Truman. Good evening. Glad we have the bye to figure this out. Yes, the bye is coming at a very opportune time. We got plenty more here to rant about, but some expected news came out Monday afternoon. Justin Jefferson was officially activated off of injured reserve. He will be ready to go in 2 weeks against the Las Vegas Raiders. In order to make room for Jefferson, they released wide receiver N'Keal Harry. And also, now that they have 3 healthy quarterbacks, they also released Sean Mannion once again. Stephen, very good thing here. And I'm just going to say this. I mean, we have been hard on Kirk on this on our shows, whether it be this one or the Vikings Uncensored Studio show, when it's deserved. And we also have been very complimentary of Kirk when it's deserved. But seeing, and I was on the X-Files, formerly known as Twitter, last night after the game. And it's not just, I know we had a comment earlier about the Kirk haters. It's the Kirk stands out on Twitter last night were doing victory laps. Not everybody, but there were some that have a fairly significant following on Twitter going around doing that. See, I told you, this is what happens when you move on from Kirk Cousins and blah, 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 blah. And some of these guys out there were just waiting for, it didn't matter if it was Dobbs or if it was Jaron Hall or Nick Mullins, or waiting for whoever it was to fail just so they can go out there and rub it in people's faces how this team isn't any good without Kirk Cousins. G-Mac, Dobbs made me appreciate Cousins' accuracy a little bit more. That's, one thing that's it's been said before, Kevin O'Connell, that's one of the high attributes he looks for in a quarterback. And part of the reason why he likes Kirk Cousins is because Cousins is a highly accurate quarterback. We all know that. Cousins can put that on a rope into tight windows. Last night we saw Dobbs try to do that. He ended up with 4 interceptions. A couple of those were tipped by the wide receivers, but there was also a couple of other ones that should have been interceptions that weren't. They do realize Cousins can't play forever. You can't rationalize an irrational thought, G-Mac. That's just kind of my thought on this whole situation. Whether it's the Kirkistani army or whether it's the Kirk haters, you can't rationalize either one of those groups because one is going to hate Kirk no matter what. Kirk could cure cancer and and world hunger and everything else on that side, they'd find something to bitch about. The Kirk lovers, Kirk could go out and commit the most unspeakable acts of war crime in the history of mankind, and they'd find ways to excuse him for that. Ryan, tell us how you really feel about Kevin O'Connell. That was a very, I don't want to say gutless, but he was coaching scared at the end of the game last night. Now, I think part of that was the fact that he had pretty much lost confidence in Dobbs by that point after the 4 interceptions. But a good evening, Jeff. But the only thing I have to say about, okay, if you've lost that much confidence in Josh Dobbs where you don't trust him to go out and try to get a first down on that, we get a first down on that final drive, the game's over. We can run the clock out. Chicago doesn't have any timeouts left. We run the clock out. We win the game. If you don't have enough faith in the quarterback that you have out there to get you a first down to do that, then get that quarterback the hell out of there and put in Nick Mullins. And that's, O'Connell made the comment, well, he thought about making the switch in the second half to get a spark. Then why didn't you? It's kind of the same thing last year. He should have got rid of Ed Donatel in mid-November, but we wrote it out till the end of the year because O'Connell's too nice of a guy and doesn't want to hurt somebody's feelings or something. I don't know. Anthony, Dobbs is a flash in the pan. We need to roll Hall for the rest of the year. So where are we at? Josh Dobbs is what Josh Dobbs is. He's a journeyman quarterback who has played for 7 different teams. And it was a little pretentious of the Vikings fan base to think that he was going to be nothing at 6 other locations and then all of a sudden come here and, the light switch comes on and he becomes the second coming of whoever. I mean, I bought into it a little bit. I mean, the first couple of games was fun. We hadn't seen a quarterback doing the stuff that he did around here in years. But then all of a sudden that's gone, and now he's, he is back down to where he is. The Pasternauts rocket blew up on the launch pad last night. Pretty much show it. KOC, the Herm Edwards clip, you play to win the game. Absolutely. Everyone see Jared Allen's comments on whether to extend Kirk or not. Maybe we should listen to Ring of Honor Vikings legend. I didn't get a chance to watch it. I saw the clip on Twitter earlier today, but I had a bunch of stuff going on, so I didn't get a chance. I kind of caught glimpses of what had been said, so can't necessarily argue. One thing I saw last night, and I was extremely disappointed in it, I guess, as far as there were Tommy Kramer came out on Twitter during last night, and that 4th down that was short to Hawkinson, he made a comment that Hawkinson cut his route too short and should have been further downfield and wasn't throwing Josh Dobbs under the bus for that play. And there were some people on there that jumped all over his ass. A lot of them were the members of the Kyrgyzstan army. Like, if Kirk Cousins had done that, you guys would have been ripping him up one side and down the other. How come you're not doing the same thing to Josh Dobbs and blah, blah, blah. And it was starting to get nasty. And guys, we got to be better than this. We're all frustrated about what happened last night. I get it. The fan base around, we've gone through so much shit over the years with this team. I get it. I've lived this for 40 some odd years. I know what it's like, but we got to quit fighting amongst each other on some of this stuff. It's just getting too far gone. It just ran up the middle, no play action. Yeah, that was the thing. We got too uber conservative at the end there, and they were playing scared. Steven, this is a great point here. Let's not forget how bad the O-line played last night. I love me some Brian O'Neill. He's a hell of a right tackle. He got his lunch handed to him by Montez Sweat last night over and over again. It was the offensive line did not play well at all last night. Everything was, the whole thing was off. Friday night when Lance and I were talking about this show, I had a really good feeling that we were going to go in, and take care of business against the Bears and go on to 7-5 and be setting up nicely for a stretch run after the bye. But last night when I was driving home, I all of a sudden got this feeling that something was going to go bad. And always trust your gut, I guess. It's just fan base thought Dobbs is the second coming of Randall Cunningham. And for 2 games, he was showing signs of that. But, and I'm not laying this all on the feet of Dobbs. I'm not. I am laying a good chunk of it on the feet of Kevin O'Connell, because I made this comment last night when I was talking to some people, and I made it today. Kevin O'Connell was trying to make Josh Dobbs into Kirk Cousins, and he's not. He was not taking advantage of the skill set that Josh Dobbs has, which is completely different than what the skill set that Kirk Cousins has. Josh Dobbs is the guy you need to get out on bootlegs and rollouts and RPOs and the action plays and things like that. Get him out in space, let him make plays with his feet and throw off of that. Cousins can't do that. We all know that. And that's not a knock on Kirk, but he can't do that. McCarthy and Penix next year. I'm not a JJ McCarthy fan. They're not letting him do the things that he should be doing in some of these games either. And I think that's a red flag. Michael Penix has played very well this year. Now, for those of you who may have watched the game on Saturday, I didn't really like his reaction at the end of the game. He drove him down to field goal range, and then instead of being out there watching and everything else, he went and buried his head in one of the carts on the sidelines and didn't come out afterwards. Hey, Dave, you're right on time. No worries. So, and granted, one thing is not going to sour me on an entire player. Also, the Michael Penix thing, he's in, has an injury history that concerns me a little bit to the pros. But there's a lot of guys out there, and we'll break down quarterbacks and stuff later. I'm a big fan of Drake May. I think he's my top quarterback in this draft. Can we get him? We'd have to trade up to get him, of course. But if there's a way to do it, I would love to have Drake May. But there's a bunch of other guys out there, too, that, will be franchise-style quarterbacks in the upcoming years. So we just got to find the right guy. Unite fighting against O'Connell. I'm not out on O'Connell, GMAC, and you and I talked about this earlier today, too. I like Kevin O'Connell. Do I have issues with some of his play calling, especially at key moments in games? Yes, I do. Does he need to make changes with some of the way he's doing things? Yes. Should there be a consideration for him giving the play call duties up to, Wes Phillips, and O'Connell just running being the CEO and running the entire game thing and let Wes Phillips call offense? I think that option should be on the table. I mean, Wes Phillips has never called plays either, but at this point in time, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Doc, never been a member of another fan base. Are you saying other teams' fans aren't in a state of civil war? I honestly can't tell you that either, Doc. I think all fan bases, unless you have a fan base that has a Patrick Mahomes or, a Jalen Hurts or somebody. I mean, Eagles fans are in a civil war with everybody, so that they're kind of off on their own. But, a Joe Burrow or somebody like that, I think you're going to have fans going back and forth, pro and con on some of these guys, knee-jerk nation. That's another one of the things with social media, you have this thing where the minute a thought pops in your head, boom, it goes out on social media. So, and then people get back and forth and back and forth. Ryan, that was Michael Penix in that Washington State game at the end of the at the end there, he couldn't sit out there and watch the field goal, which Washington made, and they won. But he wasn't out there watching. He was kind of basically hiding it. I don't know why. I haven't followed up on it because I got too busy with other stuff. KOC played us too basic, first to lose. He played not to lose. That was a problem, and it cost. When you play to lose, more often than not, you're going to. You have to play to win. Punt from Ryan Wright. Yeah, Ryan Wright has struggled, especially lately. And as good as he was last year, I don't know what the deal is this year, but he's not been the punter he was last year. He had prime opportunity to pin them down inside the 10-yard line, and he messed it up bad. But, again, it's just a combination of things that has been going wrong with this team all year, and it's I'd be concerned if KOC can do anything with a new quarterback. We brought Kevin O'Connell in to, be that guy. And until he proves that he can't, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Now, the problem with Josh Dobbs, again, he's been here for a month. And he's not the type of quarterback that really fits in a Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell type system. If you look at them, they prefer more of the pocket passer type guy, and they got Dobbs because Kirk went down. They needed another quarterback, and he was cheap, and he was available, and he wasn't going to cost much of any draft capital that could potentially screw up what the plan they have going forward for 2025 or 2024 and beyond. So I don't blame them for bringing Dobbs in, and honestly, the plan was to not even play Dobbs. The plan was for Jaron Hall to come in, and hopefully he played well enough where Dobbs was just going to be here as the backup, and that lasted all 2 series. The thing with Dobbs kind of fits that mold a little bit more. He's more mobile than Kirk Cousins is. He's got mobility. He can move around, but he's a very accurate passer, and that's, I think, paramount in this offense is to be accurate, to get those timing routes, to be able to fit it into the tight windows, things like that. Anthony, good question. When's the last time we had a good OC? I mean, an actual OC, not the HC calling plays. You look back, Pat Shurmur, 2017, probably. Kevin Stefanski, 2019. Beyond that, you had Gary Kubiak, who called it the 1 year. Coloring book Clint was terrible, so we're not even going to bring him up. Brian Billichuk, he was very good back in '98. They ranked KOC because he's an offensive coach. He plays not to lose. Yeah, and that's the thing. We picked the one guy out of the Sean McVay offense that's plays conservative and close to the best. Ryan, doesn't Penix know these guys can bomb it down the field to throw screens and that's it? Yeah, he can. I mean, he can move around too. He's a pocket passer first that can move around, but there's flaws to his game, and I'm not completely sold on the guy, and his injury history concerns me. He's had some ACL problems in the past. There's a lot of guys. Like I said, I've just started looking at some of these guys. I've watched some of the bigger name guys, and there's a few guys I like. There's some more that we can get. Good evening, Todd. Why did Brian Flores stop blitzing on that last drive? Feels nothing against it. That's a very good question, and something I was asking myself during that last drive. And even Troy Aikman brought it up during the broadcast is why they were only rushing 3 at the point in time. Now, if you were down, if you were up by 7 or hell up by 4, I can understand it because all you had to do is keep them out of the end zone. They were up by 1 and a field goal wins it. So I don't know what was going on there. Doc, here's a good point. I think KOC was ready to try being an OC, not ready to be an HC, an offensive play caller. You're probably not wrong. He should have actually called plays for a year or 2 before he got a head coaching job. But, somebody off the McVay tree, if you had a cup of coffee with Sean McVay, you're a head coaching candidate. Thoughts exactly. Runs up the middle. Hey, good evening, Dylan, by the way. Middle was still wide openable. Learned nothing from McVay. Yeah, he doesn't call. I mean, he set up the game plans for McVay. McVay called plays on Sundays, in Los Angeles, still does. You would have thought that, and O'Connell was a quarterback. You would think that he would have that instinct to go out there and be aggressive and push the ball down the field and, go out there and score as many points as you can. Do like Mike McDaniel down in Miami. He put up 70 points on Denver a few weeks back. The most we've ever scored in our history is 56. Most Kevin O'Connell innings ever scored is 38? I forgot about Ty Chandler too last night. The running game, I didn't expect the running game to be great last night because the Bears, who are I think they're 3rd against the rush in the NFL. So they're good at stopping the run. So I didn't expect it to be a lot, but there was a lot more things we could have done last night that we just didn't do. Part of it was because the offensive line was having a shit night. Part of it was because we were trying to make Josh Dobbs into a pocket passer, which he will never be. Doc, like KOC, but do think he's overwhelmed even still. Yeah. I mean, he's learning too. He's the second youngest coach in the NFL. He's been calling plays for a year and 3 quarters right now. So he's still learning things too, but there's still that mindset. I mean, Mike McDaniel never called plays either before he came, and look what they're throwing the ball up and down the field, everything else. But even, before we lost Jefferson, before we lost Kirk, everything else, we were the number 1 passing offense in the league. We were better than Miami in passing yards. It's just when we start getting into those short yardage plays and down inside the red zone, things like that, I think O'Connell tries to get a little cute sometimes overthinks himself. When he should go conservative, just line up and, go the old brute force run to get a yard. We're spreading guys out and going empty backfield and things like that. I don't know what to say about it more than it's head scratching at times. And I don't understand why. O'Connell wasn't a good quarterback. Yeah. I mean, obviously he wasn't. He played for New England and the Jets, and I don't think he hardly played in in the NFL, during regular season much at all. Don't mind giving a guy time to learn. You have to learn, but KOC hasn't shown any ability to learn. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously aware of the issues because he has brought them up in his press conferences. A lot of it is coach speak, but he has to be aware of it enough to bring it up. I'm just wondering, in the heat of the moment, part of the reason why him and Kirk are on the same line, they both tend to get inside their own heads and overthink things too much sometimes. And I think O'Connell has that problem. He gets in there, trying to think this, trying to think that, gets too cute, this, everything else, and ends up doing something that doesn't work. And we end up with these long stretches that where the offense goes into a shell. The three best players last were Hawkinson, Powell, and Metellus. They all had very good games. Metellus had a very good game. Ivan Pace Jr. played a hell of a game. Daniil Hunter was all over the field. He was a one-man wrecking crew last night. He's now tied for the league lead in sacks with 13 and a half. He has a sack and a half to go to pass Jared Allen for sixth place all time on the Vikings list. So, he very well could get that next, in 2 weeks against the Raiders. We just said we have Coach Cousins. There's a lot of similarities, I think, between Kevin O'Connell and Kirk Cousins, albeit Kirk Cousins is a much more talented quarterback than Kevin O'Connell ever was. But it's just that, I think there's kind of on that same wavelength sometimes that, hey, Brian, good evening. Got the bag off your head. Yeah, we're here. We're going through it. We're just talking about this stuff. And, that's all we can do right now. It's just kind of vent about this, get our frustrations out on it, go into the bye week. Hopefully they get their shit figured out and we come back out against the Raiders in 2 weeks and actually play like a competent team, because we sure as hell didn't do that last night. Keep Hunter's going to finish top 5 in sacks in the Vikings. If Hunter's here next year, he'll be top 5, because I believe number 5 is Chris Dolman. I think he has 96, 98, somewhere in there. So he'll easily be top 5 in sacks. I mean, like I said, he'll be 6th by the end of the year easily. He's still got 5 games to go. He's easily got a shot at 20 sacks. Daniil is playing like a man possessed. Absolutely. He's playing for that contract, and he is earning every dollar that he is going to get. You're not the first person I have seen that I've seen bring this up today, Ryan. Ditching Kevin O'Connell and promoting Brian Flores to head coach. I honestly do not see the team parting ways with Kevin O'Connell, especially with all the shit that's gone on this year, losing Jefferson for 7 games, losing Cousins, Marcus Davenport being out for most of the season and being a complete and total waste of a free agency pickup. Several other circumstances. I mean, a lot of it is on him, and I'm not making excuses for O'Connell, but I also do not want to become one of those teams like the Carolina Panthers. Before David Tepper bought the franchise, they had 4 head coaches in their history, 3 or 4. And since he bought the team in 2019, they've had 6 head coaches, I believe, or 7, and they'll have an 8th because now that they have an interim now after they fired Frank Reich after 11 games. Lose Flores and we're sunk. Yeah, I mean, if I'm Kwesi after the season, the Wilfs, whoever's all involved in this, I call Brian Flores into my office and I just say straight out, I said, what's it going to take to keep you here next year? Name your price as far as contract goes. You want to be get an assistant head coach title, assistant head coach defense. You got it. Whatever what Brian Flores has done to this defense is nothing short of phenomenal. I mean, we all saw how bad this defense was last year. And this team has given up 1 touchdown in the last 8 quarters. And we lost both games because the offense has been putrid. But that defense has been lights out most of the year. There's been a couple hiccups up and down the road. And Flores' defenses always start out slow, as we saw at the beginning of the year. But these last 6-7 games, that defense has been one of the best defenses in the NFL. And he's doing it with, Jordan Hicks being out. We got Anthony Barr coming back, who has, he played a fair amount last night and he actually got that one fumble recovery. You've got they dressed 3 cornerbacks last night. Byron Murphy, Andrew Booth, and Mekhi Blackman were the only 3 cornerbacks they dressed last night. And they dressed 6 safeties. Basically the same players as last year. Yeah, because we brought in Marcus Davenport. He hasn't played. Dean Lowry has been a massive disappointment up on the front line. Sheldon Day had himself a very good night last night, I thought. Jacqueline Roy has flashed. Kiris Tonga has started to play better. Flores is a legit head coach. He absolutely is, Ryan, and he will be a head coach again at some point. I still wonder, at least next year, this lawsuit that he's got going against the NFL and Miami and stuff like that, is that going to affect him getting a head coaching job? I mean, Flores is good enough where he doesn't have, like he did last year, he could have had the Arizona job. Arizona is a dumpster fire organization with a bad ownership family and cheapskates and this, that, and everything else. He was rather to come here and work as a defensive coordinator than go there. He can be picky. And if there is a prime opportunity for him with a team that he thinks he can turn around and take to that next level, yeah, he will probably go that route. But I would, I will do anything that we need to do to keep Brian Flores here as our defensive coordinator next year. Anthony, you like the way we're running the D this year? Go back to more 4-3 next year. Flores really doesn't have a base. I mean, yeah, technically we are a 3-4 base, but last night they were running, for the most part, you're running a 4-4-3, or they're doing a 4-man front. They'd run 3-man fronts. They'd run 5-man fronts. You're dropping 8 back in coverage. It's I love what Flores does because he mixes things up. You're not just going out there with the same scheme every game, every down, every series. He's mixing things up, confusing offenses, and it's starting to pay dividends big time. 12 sacks back from 5th place. I knew it was right in there someplace. He most likely won't get to that this year, but he could. 20 sacks this year is not out of the equation. We got 5 games left, and he's at 13.5 right now. So, he could be very close to that point by the time the season's over, and easily reach. Either way, it's easily reachable next year. It's the most important part of the team, same players. Yep. Ryan, good here. Thoughts on Addison's gameplay last night? I know Addison was extremely down on himself. I forget which one of the reporters it was, but he said Addison was one of the last guys to leave the locker room last night. He was sitting in his locker whenever most other people were gone already, just kind of, with his head kind of down in this, and he said he talked to Addison, asked, how he thought his rookie season was going. He said 3 weeks ago, I thought, if you'd asked me then, he said, I just said it was going pretty well. He said the last 3 weeks, he said, I need to be doing more. There was a couple plays last night. The one play that first play when we went deep to Addison on the first play of the game, that was a catch. And we really should have challenged that one. And Addison said he said himself too. He said, "I know it was a catch." He said, "I know it didn't hit the ground." But they did it, got up and went too much. That play where the defender fell down, got hurt, and he was wide open at the end zone. Could he have done more on that play? Maybe. But if Dobbs hits him in stride, I mean, I could have ran that in for a touchdown, if the throw was there and the throw was off, and that was, where the accuracy thing comes back in. That one where it bounced up, where he popped up in the air and ended up being an interception. He took the blame for that. He said he wasn't ready for it. Dobbs put a lot of heat on that one. I like Jordan Addison. I do. And I think, between when Jefferson's back and we have a quarterback who can throw the ball downfield and make some plays, those two are going to be unstoppable as far as, wide receiver tandems, I think, because you can't ignore one and double team the other because the other one's going to kill you. Biggest disappointment, the poor performance against very beatable opponents. There's not a team that we have played this year that we didn't have the opportunity to beat. We could have very easily beat Philadelphia. We should have beat Kansas City. We absolutely should have beat Tampa Bay. We should have beat Denver. We had no reason losing to the Bears last night. We should have beat the Chargers. The Chargers gave us that game, and we handed it right back to them. Addison's very small. Yeah, he's not a big guy, but it's some of these smaller guys are hell of players too. Should have challenged that because he definitely caught it. I know I watched that play back 3 or 4 different times, and the ball did not touch the ground. It should have been challenged. I don't know why they didn't, but be that as it may, defense can beat anyone. Absolutely. Got to be able to block. Yep. It's quarterback and who can pass. Yep. I am going to bring up one thing on the officiating last night, and it's not necessarily the officiating last night, but just the officiating in general. You guys remember last night when I forget who the Bears defensive back was that took his helmet off on the field and got that 15-yard penalty? Remember back in Kansas City when a Chiefs defensive back did that exact same thing, and the Chiefs guy got told to just put his helmet back on? They didn't flag him. That, if they'd have, on that play there, that could have been the difference in the Vikings winning and losing against Kansas City as well. It just shows that how bad the officiating in the NFL is across the board this year. And they can say they don't play favorites all they want to, but we all know they do. And that's a, prime example right there. Officials have cost us games. Yeah, last week against Denver, that what should have been a targeting and that hit on Dobbs right off the get-go, they call that a penalty. That fumble doesn't count. That wins us the game right there. I hate blaming officiating for losing a game, because if you put yourself in a position to let the officials dictate the outcome of a game, whether it's conscious or incompetence or whatever it is, then you have bigger problems. You should never put yourself in those positions to let something like that that's out of your control determine the outcome of a game. And we do that too much because we play all of these one-score games and all this other stuff. We don't blow teams out. We don't go out and win comfortably. And when you do that, stuff like this happens. Chuck, this is a very, very key point, and I harp on this all the time. I want the officials to be full-time employees of the NFL. Most of these guys have regular jobs during the week, and they come in on a Friday, go through stuff Saturday, this and that, and then call the games on Sunday. I also want the head of the officiating crew to have to go in front of the reporters after each and every game and do a press conference and answer to some of these calls that were made, because doing some of this stuff is going to start holding these officiating crews responsible, because you're going to get the head official going up there. He's not going to want to have to keep taking calls about, why did you guys blow this call? Why did you guys blow that call? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? But they need their feet held to the fire on this, Chuck. And I agree with what you said there 1,000%. I've been saying it for years. It needs to be done. And I don't know why the league doesn't do it. I mean, I know they'd have to negotiate with the officiating union and that kind of stuff, but it needs to be done. And there's no reason for it. Or expand instant replay so that, you have those accelerated replays and things like that, or that more things can be reviewed, all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of ways with the technology we have nowadays. There's so many different things that we could do to make this better. And for whatever reason, they're not doing it. Officiating is subjective. It is. And these guys are in a bad spot. I do understand that too. But, there's no consequences for an officiating crew that screws something up royally. You get a letter from the league on Tuesday that says, "I'm sorry, our officials missed this call. Our bad. We're sorry." But that doesn't help you when that screw up costs you a game. Hey, yeah, I've been advocating for this for years, Ryan. I think it's necessary. I do. And it's not that big of an ask. They already have your coordinators and your coaches and the quarterbacks and everything. What's one more press conference to have the head of officiating go up there? Just do one in front of both the media groups from both teams. Let them ask their questions, hold these guys accountable. It's not that hard. Yeah, it already has the tech in the balls to know if it's a first down, but they like the drama of the chains. Yeah, the NFL is the entertainment business. I mean, and that's part of the reason why you get all these conspiracy people out there saying the NFL is rigged, because it's better ratings when you get some of that WWE type drama and stuff built into it. And it's entertainment. It's TV, it's ratings, it's all that. That's a lot of it. Officiating is the least of this team's problem. I agree 100%, Brian, on that. I just kind of got off on my rant a little bit about my thoughts on officiating. It is what it is. It's not just bias against Minnesota. It's bad across the league. I've watched several games this weekend when the Vikings weren't playing, and the officiating is bad. And that's why I think they should be full-time employees and they should be accountable. Should have the technology to be able to review every play without disrupting the flow of the game. Yeah, I mean, it would slow things down a little bit because you have to, be cognizant and be paying attention. I mean, you don't have to review every play, but if it's something that there's even the least little bit of question to it, it's like, no, hold on, we're going to take 5 seconds here or 10 seconds, take a quick look at this. Go to a TV timeout. You have enough of them damn things already. JD, good evening. Conservative play calling both sides of the ball. If we had kept rushing the end of the game, we would have won that one. We tried that. We ran it right up the gut. Got 2 yards on that last drive. All we would have needed to do was get one first down, and that game was over. because we could have ran the clock out and there's not a damn thing the Bears could have done about it. And we couldn't do it because O'Connell had no confidence in Josh Dobbs at that point after he had thrown 4 interceptions. To my point earlier on, if you have that little confidence in your quarterback at that point, get him the hell out of there, get the backup in just to try something different. Oh, yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier tonight too with the Flores blitzing most of the night, gave Justin Fields fits, and yet at the end of whatever reason we backed off on it. Like I said, if we were up by 4 points or more, I fully understand doing that because all you got to do is keep them out of the end zone. But when you're only up by 1, you got to keep them out of field goal range, which we didn't do. That was the one drive where there was maybe 2 drives the entire night where they gave up a couple of big plays, and that one unfortunately happened at a very inopportune time. But controlling the destiny, we always leave it to him. That's been one of my biggest gripes with this team for the 40 years I've been a fan of this. It's the Vikings always play down to their opponent. It seems like they can't just take it upon themselves to put games away and things like that. And it's frustrating. And I mean, I don't have to sit here and say that because you guys all know it as well as I do. 2017 draft talk with Commissioner Goodell. He told me his daughter was a Vikings fan. If the league was fixing the game, you'd think Goodell would give us a Super Bowl. If his daughter is a Vikings fan, you would think. I mean, they're not fixing games. Is there favoritism and stuff in certain areas? Yeah, because they play favorite teams that get ratings. Kansas City's getting favorites now because they won 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years, and Taylor Swift trots around with Travis Kelce. So, it's bringing in people that normally wouldn't watch football and that and everything else. And again, to that WWE level drama, some of that stuff. But the NFL's not fixed. Why is KOC afraid of blowing teams out? I wish I had the answer to that, Robert. I really, really do. And it's one of my biggest gripes with Kevin O'Connell is why. It was kind of the same thing Mike Zimmer did. Zimmer's theory was the offense scored just enough points and let his defense do the job and win the game for him. Kevin O'Connell's an offensive mind. We should be out there putting up as many goddamn points as we possibly can every time we can. Chris, good evening. If we can't put up 13 points this game, then loss on the offense. Defense holds Chicago to 12 and lose. Never should have came down to that last drive. Absolutely. 1,000% agree with you. There is, with all the weapons that this team has on offense, there is no way we should only score 10 points in a game. And yeah, we didn't give up a touchdown, and we still lost the freaking game. It's completely on the offense. It's on Josh Dobbs and his 4 turnovers. It's on Kevin O'Connell and his cowardly play calling at the very wrong times. And all of the stuff that we didn't do right on offense last night, trying to make Dobbs into a pocket passer when he's not. Still having trouble establishing the run. Play action is less effective. Yeah, that's the thing. When you don't fear the run. Now, against Denver, we ran very well. But last night, again, the Bears are one of the best teams in the league against the run, so I didn't expect a great rush night, but I expected better than what we had. And with the game basically within a point or two most of the time, it's not like it was out of hand and we couldn't keep running the ball. We just couldn't establish it. But Bears defense played well. Yeah, it did. You got to give the Bears some credit on this because they did enough to win and we didn't. Are the Bears still a dumpster fire? Yeah, I think they are. But at this point, the fire is starting to smolder in the Vikings camp as well. Our O-line is terrible. They played terribly last night. They played really well the last 5-6 weeks, I thought. Ed Ingram is coming around. Getting Dalton Reisner in there has helped considerably, I think. But like I said, last night was one of the worst games Brian O'Neill has played as a Viking. They had a bad night. The entire offense had a bad night. Kevin O'Connell had a bad night. Josh Dobbs had a bad night. Jordan Addison had a bad night. Yeah, it was just I don't know. It's just a culmination of things, but yeah. And I mentioned that earlier tonight too, Brian, before you came in, about Montez Sweat ate Brian O'Neill's lunch last night. It just wasn't. I don't know. Montez Sweat is a good player, but he's not all world. Oh my God, he's unstoppable. But last night he almost acted like he was. Not all on Dobbs, the entire operation. Yep, I agree. And that was the kind of the point I was trying to get to. It was on it. The offense as a whole last night, other than a couple of guys. Hawkinson played pretty well. That's really about, I guess, really about it. We didn't get much done from. I mean, we had 140 yards total offense midway through the third quarter. I mean, it was just, the whole thing was non-existent last night, and it was just frustrating. But anyway, guys, it's been we're coming up on an hour here, so we'll do a last call. Anything you guys want to talk about here quick before we call it a night? Dobbs had a QBR of 19.3 last night. Thank you for bringing that up, Anthony. Just for comparison's sake, if you take a drop back and throw the ball into the dirt on every play, the worst passer rate QBR you can get is 36.3. Dobbs was 19.3, half of that. It just shows how bad of a game he had last night. Can only get better. Can't get a whole lot worse than what we saw last night. That's for damn sure. But, we got the bye week coming up here with time to lick our wounds, and hopefully the coaching staff takes a long, hard look at things. There's probably going to be a quarterback change coming for the game against the Raiders. Chuck, I'm not sure yet. The turnover battle, yeah, absolutely, Robert. I'm not sure who starts a quarterback in 2 weeks, Chuck. Initially, I'm thinking it's probably going to be Jaron Hall, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit to see Nick Mullins get trotted out there either. JG coming back should open things up on the offense. Yep. I know one thing Kevin O'Connell said today is whoever the quarterback they decide is going to be the quarterback is going to be the guy that's going to be able to maximize Justin Jefferson most. So if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would say Josh Dobbs is not starting against the Raiders. It's going to be either Nick Mullins or it's going to be Jaron Hall, and that's going to depend on which of the two looks better in practice this week with Justin Jefferson out there as a full participant. So we'll see what happens there. Lance and I are going to talk about that on Friday on the regular studio show. We're going to run over all of that stuff. Kind of hit where the Vikings are going to have to go from here, what they need to do in order to salvage the season and try to, stay in this playoff chase, and a bunch of other good stuff as well. There will not be a Brunswick's Best tomorrow night. Lance has got some family stuff going on, so we won't have the opportunity to record, but we'll be back next week with that. Have not decided next week yet if there will be a Ryno's Rants. I'm leaning towards yes on Monday, just to keep the show flow going. We'll see what we have to talk about. We'll let you know for sure on Friday about that. But again, want to thank everybody for watching. We've had upwards of 20 plus people at a time watching here. One of our better shows for people coming in. Really appreciate that. You guys make sure you hit that like button on the way out as you go. Hit the subscribe over on the YouTube channel if you have not. Helps us out a ton. big shout out to all you guys in the chat. Thank you so much. I love talking football with you guys. Great talking with competent fans who know and, think things out rationally. And we've been talking about this for over an hour now. Good rational discussion amongst Vikings fans. We all want the same thing. We want this team to be successful. We want a Super Bowl. So I want to thank all of you guys for joining tonight. Shout out again to the Filipino fan club. Noy and Bibi, I know you're about the only two watching today because of everybody else is on vacation over there as well. But shout out to you guys. And a big thank you again to everybody. You guys have a great rest of your week. Brunswick and I will see you Friday at 6 p.m. for this week's Vikings Uncensored Studio show, and then we'll be back next week as well. You guys have a great rest of your night, great rest of your week. Skol Vikings, and let's get this stuff figured out, huh? Have a good one.